Welcome to This Must Be the Place. I'm your host, Alo Galinsky. Each week, I'll uncover what's happening in Sonoma County, diving into the hidden gems and quirky corners. I'll be interviewing some of our local legends, as well as people you didn't know you need to know, all through the eyes of a craft beer enthusiast living in wine country. Join me as we explore one sip, one story, and one adventure at a time, and together we'll find out why this must be the place. At the end of September, Hollywood veterans Pamela and Kirk Demorest are bringing the magic of cinema on location to Healdsburg for the fourth year in a row. Today, they join us to discuss what inspired them to start the International Short Film Festival, how they're elevating global storytelling, and why they're focused on shorts. Welcome, Pamela and Kirk.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
We're really excited to have you on. This is going to be a whole podcast themed around the Healdsburg International Film Fest. So I want to start off by asking you, what was the original inspiration for starting this festival, and what void did you see it filling in the cinematic landscape?
Wow. Well, we had, our first festival was a fundraiser in 2011 in Bodega Bay. And Kirk is a career editor and was on a show for Universal at the time. We had moved to Sebastopol in 2008 to raise our kid out in the country. And Kirk went on a hiatus, and we kind of sat around and said, what are we going to do? And we were short film makers. So we looked around and nobody was doing a short film festival. In our area, there were a couple festivals, but no short film festivals. So we said, let's do that. Being so close to Bodega, we hadn't really explored Healdsburg. So we just thought, Bodega, the birds, let's do it there. So we did our very first one as a fundraiser in Bodega Bay. And the interesting thing is there's no venue in Bodega Bay except for the Marine Biology Labs auditorium. So we did it out there, and it was great. We had filmmakers coming from all over the world. Remember their response to watching whales?
Oh, it was crazy. We had a filmmaker lounge where there's like pizza and stuff, and they can hang out and chat up filmmakers and have a beer. And then they're sitting there watching whales off the coast, and they're blown away. These people are coming from Japan and Iran and all this stuff, and they can't even believe it. So it was really exciting, and that kind of gave us the bug.
What happened was somebody who was very rooted in Healdsburg at the time said, you guys should move this to Healdsburg. And we were naive enough to say it was such a monumental task to pull that off in Bodega of all places. And so we said, no, this was a lot. We think we'll just kind of maybe perfect this. They said, no, come to Healdsburg. So we went and met with somebody, and Healdsburg was the place to move. So we moved there the following year.
Healdsburg has the infrastructure. It has the freeway, it has the hotels, it has the restaurants, it has the panache of the wine country.
Yeah, it sounds like the logistics were just a little bit easier to handle than Bodega, while stunningly scenic. And I'm sure the wow factor for people coming out of town for the first time to this part of the world. I mean, moving it to Healdsburg just probably made a lot of sense. And it sounds like it's thrived in the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
We started not as an annual festival. That was a fundraiser. And then the next one was a fundraiser because we didn't have a permanent home. It's really challenging for any festival, first of all, to secure a venue. So it was a fundraiser, and then we got busy. His work took him traveling. I had a small child at home. We didn't go annual until we came back in 2023. We can be annual now. We couldn't at that time.
And I'm sure you need the support of the city to be able to do that. The popularity of the film festival, you're making a name for yourself, and that really speaks for being able to bring it back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just fun to see it grow. Year over year, we've grown so much, and we're getting way more filmmakers this year than last year, even though many of them are afraid to travel to the United States because of obvious reasons
right now, yeah.
Politically. But we're still getting a lot of filmmakers domestically, and it's really exciting to see the growth. And also we're building something. Each year we develop new systems, better marketing or whatever. So we're building on it, and we can use last year's stuff and add to it, which is great.
Can you tell us a little bit about the festival's mission, vision? You said it wasn't meant to be an annual thing, but how has it evolved since you founded the festival?
I love short films because short films they're just such an amazing format. It takes all the skill and talent of a real movie, takes the film, the production, the writing, the music, everything, but it's all short. And the thing that's the coolest about a short film festival is you go in there and you have all these short films. And if one's not your taste, maybe the next one is. But if you go to a regular film festival with long format feature films, you'll watch a film, and if it's not your taste, you just lost out on your time and your ticket for that festival. So short films always excited me. And then I guess the mission would be to give voices to people like me. I'm a filmmaker too, and to give voices to people who can tell these stories. And they're so fresh and so unique because they're not constrained by Hollywood or by executive boardroom or whatever, marketing, advertising. They can just be themselves. And so we've had some crazy films. And so our mission is really to inspire fresh voices to come forward with their films. And we've even had people come with iPhones, or even back before iPhones. Someone filmed a video in, I think it was Pakistan, on their phone. It was one of those non-iPhones back in the day. It was powerful. It was like a 2-minute, really, really powerful film. And that just inspires us so much. And so our goal is just to give voices to those filmmakers.
Yeah, and to add to that point, I remember over the years, we've gotten amazing stories told from like kids in Africa on an iPhone. And so the access that a short film can give anybody who has a story is really exciting. You know, there's all kinds of budgets for short films. You can have a zero budget and you can have a $20,000 budget. And we've had all of that in our festival over the years. It's very accessible.
And the other thing too is that we want to give a platform for these films to be seen, because people don't know how to find short films or watch them. You can go on YouTube and it's just like this deluge of content, or you don't know what you're looking for or how to look for it or how they're curated. Ours is a platform, and the community comes together and they love to sit there and just take in all these different voices. It's really cool to see it. And so that's the platform is also part of the mission.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I think, speaking as somebody who is a millennial and looking at kind of the Gen Z trends and everything, attention spans are down. And that might not have been, something you intended when you started this film festival, but people aren't looking to long form as much anymore. As you said, sometimes you go on YouTube or Netflix and there is this deluge of just like, what are you going to watch and what are you actually going to invest the 2-3 hours in spending and watching? Right. This is a place for people who are maybe of the TikTok era and those who like these kind of short snippets with enriching content to be able to come out and see something on a big screen and with other people rather than sitting at home on their phones.
Exactly. Because it's all about the real. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but this is close to that, but not that.
I'm a content creator myself. And so I always have to keep that in mind when I'm, 4 minutes doesn't get you new viewers on Instagram anymore. And so being able to curate these videos that are short and attention catching, especially in that first 30 seconds to a minute, isn't quite the same thing as a film with a plot. But I just think people are trending more towards that.
Exactly.
Whether we like it or not.
It's interesting because we have films. We have one this year that's a 1-minute film, and that's where the talent and creativity come from. Because those films that we have that are nano shorts or micro shorts, they're called. A lot of people still manage to put a beginning, middle, and end that's very compelling together, and that's the talent. Because you see a lot of just nonsense of people who are creating content and not saying anything, just filling that time. But to do a story that has a beginning, middle, and end and make it look good in a short period of time, that's exciting.
Yeah, and then also I don't think that the mini short film is necessarily the be all and end all. I'm putting together our film reel for the projection, and yesterday I had to sit through this 20-minute film that we have in our opening night, I think it is, and it just like captivated me every single second of the movie. So I've seen it several times, but I was still like so emotionally engaged, and I was like actually crying and welling up and stuff because it was so powerful. And so I think that people, given the format, like being around the cinema and watching it on the big screen and everything, they will appreciate a really nice film that's the right length. It doesn't have to be like mini short.
I'd love for you to describe your curation process. Give us a little bit of insider information. Do you use a committee? How do you ensure such a diverse range of films and voices to be heard?
If you're a filmmaker looking to get into a festival, you peruse the most popular platform for submissions for festivals, which right now is called Film Freeway. So if you're a filmmaker, you go on there and you can search out the festival that might be right for your film. So we have people coming to us because we are listed on Film Freeway. And then we have a committee that we make all decisions through, because sometimes my taste is different than Kirk's, or we'll love something about a film, but something about it one of us won't love. So we do have a committee. And then what the committee does, a couple people on the committee and us, is we curate films also. And we do that by word of mouth through people that we know who heard of a great film at a festival. We look at other festivals. The good thing for us is we're in international festivals. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to look overseas and see what's new and upcoming. Sometimes I do a lot of the curation. Sometimes I hit universities in other countries who have strong film departments, and I have relationships with them. And I'll ask them to send me something that might be exciting. Or this year we got an overabundance of dramas. I think just globally, that's how people are feeling. That's in the zeitgeist right now, is just there's a heaviness going on all over the world. So it was a stretch to find some lighter films this year. So I had to reach out to people and say, hey, give me something light, give me something funny, give me something absurd, give me a romance, because we like to be diverse in our genre offering and not just have the same tone through any of our screening blocks. So
we're still going to be varied in our tone and everything, but boy, the overload of heavy dramas. I mean, really heavy stuff, like bad, nasty stuff happening, and domestic stuff, political stuff, everything like that. And it's just like, whoa, can we just like have some of that and also have some levity too? She's the chief curator and she reaches out to everyone. I'm more of the mechanical, technical video guy. So
we make decisions together. I go find the films, filmmakers send us the films. And actually, quite honestly, this year we had 467 films that we sifted through.
Wow.
Bring it down to 51 in the program. But like we said before, it has to be there. Sometimes you turn on a film and granted, they are short, so they go anywhere from 1 minute to 20. That's our parameter. But sometimes you turn it on and it's just not there. Although it seems like we sat for hours and hours and hours, we did. But some of them you don't watch all the way through because they missed the mark somehow.
We watch all the films that are paid that come into us through Film Freeway. Yes. We watch every minute of those. But even after the first 30 seconds, you just see that it's going nowhere, or they have bad sound, or they are just very languid and not really for an audience, or too experimental. There's things like that. So we have a very special tone that we're going for, which is basically being a human and connecting to the world through our humanity. That's kind of our big thing. And a lot of those films have fantasy components, which is like somebody dreams something or they become something or whatever. That's fantastic. And then a lot of the films are just straight up good storytelling. Yeah. And so, but our tone is very European, I guess. That's more of our aesthetic.
Yeah. And our tone fits the region because we feature mixed genres, but there's a couple of genres we don't do because there doesn't seem to be that thirst in our region for that. We're not attracting the people who go to horror film festivals. So we don't accept horror films in our lineup. We did in the beginning, but it wasn't responded to very well where we're at. We also curate for our community and who shows up for that. And a big part of that too is we're huge fans of student films because we all started in student films. So we have a whole block dedicated to student filmmaking. This year we have a lot of local student films in our lineup, which is exciting. But we take student films from all over the world.
When we come in the morning and see which new films came in overnight or whatever, our heart is set on loving the film. Yeah. We want to hit play and we want to love that film. Like we're 100% looking for gold. We want to see it. We want to love the film. And so, but then we're a lot of times disappointed most times, as you can tell by the numbers. Boy, when you hit a film like that, it elevates your whole day, and we're walking around all day talking about it.
Exactly.
And I mean, some films are just so compelling, and we have films from 2011 that people still come up onto the street and talk to us and say, hey, I remember that one film in 2011 where something crazy happened. And that's a long time to hold a memory of a film.
Yeah.
it's just really satisfying when you find something that pops.
And we really do want to love every single one of them because it makes it easier for us.
Yeah, we want that film to work so badly.
So when you're evaluating these films and submissions, what qualities do you find the most compelling typically?
I would say a fresh voice, first of all. This is not your standard affair. Our films are very unusual. I mean, a lot of them are. And like I said, there's some fantasy component, but first of all, it has to be engaging and compelling every single minute. They're short films. We had a documentary about the life of a salmon that was so amazing in 2023, and people still remember it. And they had the salmon animated as little humans. So the humans were like swimming along as salmon. It's incredible, like CGI and stuff, insane. It was just really well received. But then we had one guy who lives inside of a cuckoo clock. He's like a little guy, and he lives inside of a cuckoo clock, and his job is to like ring the cuckoo chime every hour, right? But then he gets involved on a game show. He's trying to win this thing on a game show inside his cuckoo clock, and he forgets to do the clock time. But you really buy it. Like some of these things are so crazy, but you really buy it. We had one guy that was afraid to go out of his house because he thought the carpet was a sea and he didn't know how to swim. It's just really just fresh storytelling, fresh voices, something you've never seen before. It's so exciting when you find that.
We skew to that, and every film he just mentioned is a European film. We skew to that because I'd like to see something different than what mainstream is giving me. So, but we also like to include, as long as it's good, that tone as well. Like last year, we had this delightful little romantic thing with Molly Ringwald. Our audiences know who Molly Ringwald is. And
she's an actress, by the way, from the 80s.
Oh, you know her, right?
I know Molly Ringwald. I'm not that young.
Yeah. So and this year we have something with Rosie O'Donnell. So we also include, if it comes our way, the more mainstream kind of fare. But we personally like that flavor. That's something that you're not going to see here typically. And also that's the tone, that's the story, but the production quality has to be there too. Sometimes you see something great and the sound is way off and it's a no if they can't easily fix it. So
you can have a really low budget, crummy looking film, but if the sound is bad, forget it. But if the sound is good and someone shot it on their phone and it's just super mind-bogglingly fresh, then we'll probably accept it.
And then listening to everything you're saying about curation and compelling voices, and also hitting them both avenues of the mainstream and also the unique, it all comes back to marketing, because people who are choosing to spend their dollars in certain ways now a little bit, more select than they used to be. So you want to make sure that things are marketed to a variety of audiences. And I'm sure that plays a little bit, if not a lot of a part in kind of what you're choosing and how you're choosing to promote the festival.
That's actually true. Like what she said about the horror films, we don't accept horror films for the marketability of it. We do try to steer away from certain things or steer towards certain things based on our community. So, and that comes down to the dollars, like who's going to come in those seats and fill that theater, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we open it up to different people, like we have documentaries that would attract special interest groups. We have probably the biggest example of that is our student film block, because the local students that we include, they bring all those young students in, and we are big champions of new filmmakers, showing their audience what these kids are making, because they don't necessarily see it in school. They could be making these films in school, but only if you're in the film department at school will you see those films typically.
What, in your opinion, has been the festival's greatest success story or achievement to date?
Well, the biggest achievement for us, honestly, we are huge fans of Tom Waits, who's an actor and a musician. We are drawn to the content he has made and all of his music. And we had heard years ago he lived in Sonoma County. So our first festival, we said, hey, let's just write him and ask if he'll be a judge, not expecting that he would. And he did. And he's back with us for the 4th year. And for us personally, it was a stroke of luck, but that he's back for the 4th year. And every year we send him a 90-minute block of films for him to watch and judge. It confirms that we are on track with what we want to do. And it resonates with people that we respect. the people we look up to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest one for me.
It also validates our curation process.
Yes,
because if we were curating bad films or not, like so many film festivals, I hate to say it, but it's like a money game for them.
Yeah.
So here's how it works. They will just accept every single film, but mainly on the condition as if you can show up at the festival, right? And then they give you a couple tickets, and then they charge all the people that come in with those filmmakers. So the filmmaker has like usually 2 passes, and then they'll charge, 6 or 8 of their friends or relatives to come in. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a racket. And so the films, when you're sitting there an audience member watching these films, you're just like, what is this? What am I even watching? Because it's a whole glut of these subpar films.
Yeah.
And so for us to like really be strict about our curation and to have that Tom Waits still validates it after 4 years is just great. And
Ed Begley too.
Ed Begley too, yeah. And the other judges. And Tom Waits, it's kind of like we're in sync with him because every single year his favorite film has also been our favorite film.
Right.
Oh, cool.
Which is great.
And they're very offbeat. Like our favorite are the one that won last year is just so incredibly innovative and offbeat.
The last year's film that won was one of those, I call it a spinach movie. Like you either love it or you hate it, right? Yeah. So if you have a film and half the people give it a 10 and half the people give it a 0, then it's got a rating of a 5, which is not that great, right? But like the people that love it really love it. And so we really loved the film last year, and so did Tom Waits. And that's really satisfying. But we take those chances because it's a short film festival. So if one's a 10, maybe the next one will be a 0, but maybe another one will be a 10,
Well, that's a new term to me, spinach film. So to all our listeners out there, start thinking, what's your spinach film, the film you love or really hate? Which side of the spectrum are you on when it comes to those types of movies? That's a good thing for you all to ponder over your morning coffee or evening drive as you're listening to us out there. How does the festival engage with and impact the local film and arts community, whether it's Healdsburg or a broader community in Sonoma County?
Well, we are actually aligned with the Healdsburg Center for the Arts, which they have an annual art fair on the Healdsburg Plaza at the same time that coincides with our film festival. And so we have a booth there and everything, and we engage with the people. And really what we do is we bring the arts, just like you have an art gallery at HCA, at Healdsburg Center for the Arts. Well, we have a film gallery. It's a gallery of films where you go in for this weekend and you watch films. And so it really does impact the community. And like I said, people come up to us years later and still remember some of the films, which is so cool. So it is helping the arts. And because we're working with the Center for the Arts, there's like crossover with the arts. We're having our opening night gala in their place and things like that. And so their patrons will become our patrons and vice versa. It's just really exciting to see the town buzzing with international language and people visiting the cafes and everything like that because we're in town. And I remember the first time that we did this in Healdsburg, we were standing room only. It was absolutely packed and it was the best sign in the world. But it made me think, wow, all these people, they want to come here and watch these short films. And that was really, really cool. And it meant they're coming to the arts and they're supporting the arts.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And another thing about the community, which is so exciting, is we have filmmakers that come from all over the place. And we don't have a budget to get them hotel rooms. And we put a call for local community members to house traveling filmmakers. And we always have more offers than we have filmmakers coming. So that is such an exciting thing because all of these people who live in Healdsburg, from professional people who own a vineyard to somebody 2 blocks away with an extra room, they all jump in and they're willing to participate by putting up a filmmaker who's coming to the festival. And that's really exciting. It's so exciting to see the local community members be a part of this.
And it's exciting for us too, because they oftentimes become friends with the filmmaker that they're hosting, and they continue a relationship. So just because we have this festival, these new relationships are being formed, and it's just so cool. And here's my final thing about how the community just benefits from it. So in our first year in Healdsburg in 2023, we had a couple that went on their first date there because they loved short films. And so they went on their first date, and guess what? They're still together today, and they're so in love and happy, and they travel all over the world. I see their Facebook, and they're in Norway or wherever. And there, we listed them in our brochure, or our film program this year. It says best romance. So
Hey, that's awesome. Go find love at the Healdsburg Film Festival,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
It's, as we look further down the road, what do you hope the film festival looks like 10 years from now? What are some of your long-term goals?
I would love to see the film festival be one of those things that people put on their calendar every single year, and that it's hard to get tickets to because it's just such a hit. Like, people love it. They think it's really worth traveling to Healdsburg. We have a whole group of about 8 or 10 people traveling this time for the festival from Idaho. And I want more of that. I want to see people like on their calendar, oh, we can't miss it. We have to plan everything around to get to the Healdsburg Film Festival, just as if you were doing it for the Toronto Film Festival or the Shakespeare Festival up in Ashland. Those kind of things. I just want it to be a staple in the Healdsburg and Sonoma County community, where people always go there and check it out.
Wrapping up a little bit, I have a big question for you here. You were around a lot of filmmakers, you view a lot of films. For those aspiring filmmakers who might be listening out there, what is the single most important piece of advice you could offer?
I would say the most important piece of advice is to keep your film moving. Keep it moving and keep it fresh. Make your film so that it is engaging. It has to entertain an audience. So just keep it fresh. If it feels slow and sluggish, or you're doing something to just, because it's cool to you, think, does the audience want to sit there that time? And if they do, that's good. Because there's times in a film where you want to sit there for 5 minutes and watch a character do something that's not very exciting, but just their emotional impact carries. So just ask yourself, is this a good moment? Basically just always second guess yourself and say, am I doing this right? Am I doing a good film? And I think that's really important. It's good to go shoot from the hip, but also like you want it to feel like you considered it. If it needs to be long and needs to have this moment, then put the moment in, but you considered it.
Filmmaking is a collaboration. And so we do see a fair number of films that don't seem like a collaboration. They seem like one person's vision and they don't veer off from that. So remember, if you're making a film, it's a collaboration, and listen to the people you're making it with. You might want this scene that has an element of you in it, whether you wrote it or directed it or you're in it. And it might be too much for everybody else. So it's a collaboration. Get the opinion of those people doing that collaboration with you, so it feels balanced.
Tell us about the festival coming up in just over a week. Tell us about what the audience should anticipate, what they should be looking for, where they can find tickets.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I'll plug our site. It's healdsburgfilm.com, easy to remember. And there you can find the list of events. And so we have an incredible kickoff soiree, which includes a wine party by Bloodroot Wines, which is our big sponsor for the year. And then it has a screening of absolutely incredible films, short films, of course, for the opening night on Friday the 26th. And then we have films throughout the whole weekend, but another highlight is on the Saturday night at the 27th, we're spotlighting women filmmakers. So it's called Women in Film. And it's just these films. That's one of the ones that I was crying about when I was watching it the other day. It's all like these incredible voices of women filmmakers, crazy goofball comedies to like very serious, heavy stuff. So many tones and varieties. So that's really fun. And then we have a filmmaker breakfast, of course, on Sunday. That's just for the filmmakers. We have a documentary block, which has very unusual documentaries. You think of a documentary as one style, but there's so many styles. There's animated ones, comedic ones. There's all kinds of documentaries. And that's really, really fun. That's on Saturday, the 27th at 4 p.m. And then finally, we culminate in the award ceremony. So there's going to be an audience voting. They'll vote for the audience favorite of the festival. And then the judges will give us their votes, and we'll award the winners. And there's a cash prize coming from the restaurant right next door to us called the Taste of Tea that just is really, really delicious. And so they're supporting the cash prize for the filmmakers. So there really is a community effort there to make this thing work.
And there's another really important event people can come to. It's open to everybody. A couple of our events are only for filmmakers, or a special ticket they have to buy. But the judge, Ed Begley Jr., will be attending, and he will be in our lobby on Saturday, the 27th at 6 o'clock with his memoir. and his memoir is amazing. And he's doing a book signing sponsored by Copperfield's Books. They'll be doing a pop-up in our lobby, and people can come and meet him. Looking forward to meeting the community. He'll be there for the whole duration of the festival. And so
Well, it sounds like you have a packed weekend planned. Pardon the film pun here, but you certainly reeled me into wanting to come and hang out in Healdsburg that weekend of the 26th. So I just want to say thank you both, Pamela and Kirk, for being on the podcast with me. I can't wait to experience the Healdsburg International Film Fest for the first time myself. And I can't wait especially to dive into our next segment where we're going to be talking to one of your filmmakers about a short film that will be at the film festival for the second year in a row. So thank you both again. And please stay tuned for everything film coming up in Sonoma County the rest of the year.
Thanks for having this. It's such a great connection to the community. I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's important to support local arts and support local events, and that's one thing we aim to do here on This Must Be the Place. So take care, you both, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Now, for a close-up on indie filmmaking, we're excited to introduce filmmaker Nada Djordjevic and actress Molly Wood from the award-winning short film Eat, Surf, Love. The film, which took home the Audience Award at the San Francisco Short Film Festival, is now screening at the Healdsburg Festival. Welcome, Nada and Molly.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
I'm really excited to have you both here. As I mentioned to our listeners in the previous segment, this being a Bay Area film fest, especially a North Bay Film Fest, we thought it would be fantastic to feature a North Bay film on this podcast. And so I kind of want to just dive right in asking something to both of you. You know, Eat, Surf, Love is a first for both of you. Nada, want to tell us a little bit about the experience, what it was like directing your first live action film?
Absolutely. This is my first live action. I had made an animated short called California Pie the previous year, and I'd made nonprofit marketing videos and public service announcements. And it is a whole different game. Live action, you're juggling so many more pieces. You're chasing the light in a very different way. You get so much more collaboration and input. It was really wonderful, and I'm excited to do it again, but it was exhausting. What do you think, Molly?
I have told Nada several times it was a first for me because I have never acted in anything other than high school plays and one table read with Nada. And so the process, despite having spent a long time doing various types of video and audio in my professional career, was just so different. And I have said to her so many times that I am shocked at the timeline that filmmaking requires. Like how long things take, how long editing takes, how many times you might re-edit something, how long the festival circuit is. You know, it's just such an interesting, what I now understand is that when you enter into a filmmaking project, you have entered into a pretty long relationship.
Sure. And Molly, you've had a long career as a journalist and podcaster, but as you were saying, was this your first film acting role? What was it like trying to transitioning from journalism to embodying a character on screen? And is that something you'll look to do again after this, what you seem to say is a grueling process?
No, it's not. No, it's like, it's one of the best relationships I've been in decades. Are you kidding? Like this is exactly the type of love that I want in my life. Yeah, it was very different. I trust Nada so much, and I understood, I think, what she wanted this character to be, and candidly, it wasn't so far away from who I am as a person and a podcaster that I felt really comfortable. I really actually did. I just couldn't have enjoyed the process more. It was such an authentic role and written so authentically that for me it seemed completely easy and natural and the most fun to basically just be a spy on these adorable people on their date.
And I'm sure the authenticity makes it even that much easier to get along with your director, your fellow castmates or crewmates, whatnot. It really helps when you're entering an endeavor for kind of the first time.
No question. Yeah, it was a really incredible, supportive crew of experts and novices alike. And so I never felt out of my depth or, judged or uncomfortable in any way. I was just like, we're just out here having fun.
So going into a little bit about how the film was shot, it was shot on mobile phones. I'd love to hear from both of you, what were the biggest challenges and also unexpected advantages of that production style? If you could clue us into a little bit of the behind the scenes.
Sure. I mean, I think with iPhone, there's three advantages. One is cost, because you're not renting cameras and lenses. Second is technical know-how. You don't have to have the same degree of technical know-how as to what you're going to do. And then third, so the versatility, you can jump different places. You're not carrying, heavy cameras everywhere. And we were jumping around the city. I think the trade-off is there are takes that were harder to get. There are sort of close-up sort of takes that are harder to get. We shot it now a few years ago, as Molly pointed out. It takes a while. So the technology's probably gotten better since we did it. There's software, apps on the phone, so they've probably gotten more sophisticated. We didn't have the most sophisticated lenses, but when you're dealing with a micro budget, it's certainly a great option. I mean, I don't know, Molly, how you probably dealt with more people filming you with big cameras and stuff too. So I don't know, as an actor, how different that might have felt to you.
Yeah, for your background, Alo, and the listeners' background, I'm a longtime podcaster, but a huge part of my career was spent at CNET, which was bought by CBS, and so I've done a lot of CBS TV, and we launched an online video product where we were doing some pretty sophisticated filming with, I will be honest, some camera guys who insisted on big broadcast caliber cameras. And that made this filming an absolute joy, because the amount of time spent on each shot was just a fraction of what I've experienced in the past. And when you need to be in character, and I just feel confident that everybody else in this film must have felt that way, that kind of unobtrusive, lightweight gear all around you without this hours of setup of lighting and a big camera, which listen, it looks great. I know you guys are watching me, my camera guys who insisted on the broadcast TV cameras. It looks beautiful, but the trade-off can be exhaustion and self-consciousness.
And you've mentioned kind of in press that the film is about resiliency after we fail. Can you tell me a little bit about what drew you to this theme, and what do you hope the audiences take away from that message?
Sure. I mean, I think all of us have had to deal with a lot of resilience, bouncing back after COVID. I think in California, we're always having to deal with resiliency, from whether it's, fires or earthquakes or economic turns. But the characters here, and Molly plays a podcaster named Maya. The other characters, Tyler Ritter plays a character named Dave, and Laura Yumi Snell plays a character named Celia. And Dave and Celia have a backstory of ways in which life has not worked out the way they thought it would. And Molly's character, Maya, has a backstory that fed into her character and how it was portrayed. And I think we all, we may have loves that didn't work out. We may have work that didn't work out. Poor Celia, everything has not worked out since she moved to San Francisco. And so in that framework, I think it's something that's highly relatable. I don't think there's a message so much as I want people to feel it's relatable. Like, when you see, the perfect apartments in, New York City on a TV show, you're like, yeah, that's not my life. And I feel like when people have seen this film, and in particular, it's fun to see it with younger people. I've seen it with 20-somethings and 30-somethings. And I hear them laughing, and they're really getting that part of this sort of angst of finding themselves. And Dave and Celia are very much like that. And I think that that's sort of resiliency, and having to come back after a bad date, having to do that is all relatable. And that's where the humor comes from. And I certainly want people to come away feeling connected to the characters.
And I can imagine in a short film like that, in a film that's 10, 20 minutes long at most, relatability is a big factor in both getting any sort of connection across, and also the marketing part of it, because you want people to feel like they should come see this at first glance without hearing about it from word of mouth, and being able to sit through something that's a very short snippet and come away feeling that they can relate to a character or a scenario after the fact.
Yeah, I think it's a 9-minute film, and there was a minute about credits. So within those 8 minutes, this is credit to Molly, Tyler, and Laura, who are able to create these characters that just you feel like you can walk out the door and there they are, and they're real people. And I think that's because they're all such good actors. Molly says, well, podcaster isn't so different. Her character's different. Her character, and it's a character. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have told me I wish it was longer, because I like the people in it so much. I want to hang out with them longer.
I think few things are more universal than wanting to love and be loved. And few things are as important when you are just trying to sort of survive this life than those connections. And so there's something so relatable is the exact word, but you can tell so much of a story. You can tell a story about hardship and struggle and ambition and hope, and that sort of like extremely cautious openness that you need to put yourself out over and over again in the dating world, but even the world, and so, and I think my character is taking this bird's eye view from a place of exactly that sort of almost lost optimism. You have this, like, she's just trying so hard to hang on to a bit of that openness to maintain the human connection that lets us all survive. And you get all of that in 9 minutes on a date, because every date is a story of your life.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of ties into what I was going to bring up next, is that Eat, Surf, Love, from what I understand, it explores kind of that awkward beauty of human encounters as much as it can in 9 minutes, but it sounds like it really gets deep in there in the time frame allotted. And I'd love to hear from both of you, Molly, maybe starting with you, if you want to discuss a memorable moment from filming that kind of perfectly captured that spirit of the awkward beauty of human encounters.
For me, my absolute favorite scene in the film, I like almost want to tear up because it's so darling, happens at the very end. It is a moment of pure awkwardness and hope combined.
Sounds like the story of my life.
It is like literally the story of all of our lives. And it happens in one hand gesture. And that's all I will say about it, because I really don't want to give it away. I hate the idea of spoiling such a wonderful moment. But, there are so many kind of incredible, delightful examples, and the flower unfolding slowly that you kind of see throughout this. And yet you realize that we're just humans, and that you can do one little thing that just like says it all, says a whole potential future's worth of things.
And shout out to Tyler Ritter, who is so good in this. And he's the physical embodiment of funny grace. Molly is incredible. I mean, with improvisation, and she and I had more opportunity to kind of work one-on-one. And she has these pointed monologues that were just great. I don't know if you remember that when we shot it at your house, and it was so incredible. And then it ended up on the cutting room floor. So because as things go, because the film ended up, as we're saying, like trying to be very tight in only a few minutes. But I think tonally and thematically, we actually ended up using some of that rhythm that came out of those monologues that you were giving. And she also is incredibly expressive. And we did a lot of takes that were just really fun that way too. Just make a shocked face, make a this, make a that. And those were really fun for B-roll too.
Yeah, very, very The Office. Just look at the camera and make a face. And yes, like in terms of behind the scenes, we really did shoot a whole other movie at my house that hopefully someday people will get to see. We had a great sunset.
You've spurred a curiosity out of me as a film buff and a process lover. I have to ask, was this written as a short film? Was it something that there was stuff added? Was it something that was tamped down from something that could be longer? How is the process going about to make this film a 9-minute film? Was it something that could be fleshed out in 30 minutes, or you're really targeting these short film fests to enter it to? I'd love to hear a little bit of the thought process behind that.
Well, so Dave and Celia emerged from a short story. It was a 2-minute flash fiction short story that I read during an event in New York. And I thought, I can make a film about this. But then it was expanded to Molly. I think some of that kind of came from our own conversations about a rom-com that we may someday still create called 5 Months or Forever. And that's sort of some of that framing device. I don't know, Molly, if you want to add any more to that, but that would have been sort of the larger film in context.
We were chatting. I mean, I don't, the backstory with Nada and I is that we were neighbors and became friends because we both have dogs, and would just be having doggy happy hour on our street and talking about all kinds of things. And we were having conversations about rom-coms, and I said, I feel like every romantic movie ends, and that relationship is either going to be 5 months or it's going to be forever. And that uncertainty is sort of part of the thrill. Maybe that makes me kind of cynical because they're supposed to be happily ever after stories, but life is life. And I think there is something wonderful in that wondering. And yes, I think that's an amazing, what does that movie look like? Is it an anthology? It's several stories.
Right.
It's several stories. Mm-hmm.
Now let's switch a little bit to talk about the setting. The story is described as a love-hate letter to San Francisco. What aspect of the city did you most want to capture, and how did the setting of San Francisco influence anything about the performances and the direction of the film in general?
So another title that I had been considering was called Arrivals and Departures. And I was just really interested in San Francisco's, one of these places where people come to with expectations that aren't always met, and people tend to be, either leaving or thinking about leaving. I mean, New York is one of those places too. LA. There's certain cities where I think people are always like, next year I might get out of here. I'm not sure. And so I was really interested in that tension in terms of, we chose locations that embody different elements of San Francisco. We filmed our interiors at Manny's Cafe, which is the 24th and Mission. So we got that to a community cafe. We have exterior Nook, and which is on Hyde Street, and we see the cable car go by. So we have that kind of sort of classic old San Francisco, and then some shots in front of the Embarcadero. You see the Bay Bridge. So we had all that, and then the sort of places in San Francisco where they could frankly be anywhere. They're sort of Gothamy, gloomy shots of, high rises that you don't even know they're in you wouldn't even know they're in San Francisco. And I wanted to capture a certain coldness that can be there, but there's also a lot of possibility and a lot of beauty. I mean, you mentioned in the beginning, we won an audience award. We're very excited about that. So it felt like it resonated, with San Francisco audiences that were reflecting it. Recently, we just got another award from Vernal Heights, another audience award. We're in the top 3 of over 40 San Francisco films. And so we're like, okay, this is good because San Franciscans feel like we're reflecting our city, which is important because we've been showing it in other places, in other states. So it's like, okay, great. When we went to Anchorage, Alaska, we were actually showing a San Francisco that people maybe aren't getting to see in Anchorage, when people talk about San Francisco. So that felt good. I mean, I don't know, Molly, do you want to talk a little bit about Maya's character and what she's doing in that San Francisco context?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things that are sort of perfectly San Francisco, including the fact that Maya herself is like a former tech executive who wants to do something else, and I think get some hope back in her life, and is doing this podcast, sort of spying on people and their lives in the city, and maybe trying to understand life in a different way. Because I think there is so much to love about San Francisco, and in the kind of less lovable bucket is the feeling that you can certainly within the tech industry, you can be completely detached. You can sort of live this like almost parallel life where your whole life is actually on your phone and it's on your computer, and maybe you work from your apartment and you really, hardly ever leave and engage with your community and ever go to Manny. And so I have this idea that Maya is trying to rediscover the mechanisms of life. Because even in a city like San Francisco that has such an incredible history, such powerful art and physical beauty and food and just, wonderful experiences all around you, I think you can still, Celia talks about going on a million dates with a million techies and hearing about a million startups. And you can have a feeling of sameness if you don't engage on purpose. And I really do think that's what Maya is trying to do.
And then it goes back to that relatability factor, which we were both talking about a few minutes ago. Absolutely.
Plus, also, we had to take shots at the fog. Like, it's freezing. It's just freezing.
You got to star. You have to star Carl at some point in a San Francisco short, correct?
Exactly. It's a requirement.
Supporting actor Carl the Fog. So, Nada, why don't you clue us in a little bit? For your first live action short, you worked with a significant number of novice cast and crew. Do you want to describe a little bit about your process for mentoring and collaboration with emerging talent?
So, I mean, I guess I would say first off that we also had a lot of established people who were kind enough to work with me and to take a chance working with me. And so I think they sort of set a tone as we're all going to have a growth mindset. And I'm really lucky that I had friends that said, yeah, I'll take the day off work. I'll come be part of this. Like my friend Takashi, who came with his family, and they all extras, and we all kind of chipped in different ways. And I think, as Molly said, a film is a long-term relationship. Like you really want, really great people that you hope to work with again, but you're also going to be, married to for quite a while for a project. So AD teaches film, and she recruited some of her students to come and work with it. We got alumni from youth groups. So it was nice to have this mix. And I think one of the things that having more people that have not been on set before is there's a certain kind of enthusiasm that comes from that, and not the sort of jadedness but I think that sparks enthusiasm for everybody and creating a more comfortable relationship. And also, like Myra Padilla, who's our producer, she also, found location. She did assistant camera, did stills photography, continues to help market it so people can, try out different parts when you're working with indie film and grow and learn in different ways.
Molly, as a first-time film actress, I'd love you to talk a little bit about what you learned from the collaboration with Nada, with the cast and crew, and what was the most surprising part of the experience?
I mean, first of all, I will never get tired of you calling me an actress. That all by itself is just worth everything. Worth everything in what was already a wonderful experience. I think a lot of my answer goes back to what you just asked and what Nada said about the mixing of novice and professional and the sort of indie experience. I think it's so valuable not to take yourself too seriously in life, or not to think that you're better than the people around you. And so this experience was sort of this wonderful mix of like no one thinking that. It was just a mix of people being good at the things that they are good at, and also trying new things. And I mean, it's almost an echo of the film itself, right? Where you're just sort of like, I have a history. I'm going to try this new thing. I'm going to put myself out there in a different way. And so for me personally, that was just incredibly exciting. And it is thrilling to take a risk, and it is thrilling to be new at something. It has been a lesson in the fact that every time you take a risk, it's worth it. At least so far. This one certainly has been. Maybe it's not always worth it, but it's still, most of the time, it's going to be.
And it sounds like for both of you, this has been a really invigorating both partnership and just experience to go through together. And that's always the fun of it, and then to be able to see that end product, come out and see it tour at these different film festivals. I want to ask, as we wrap up here, from two experts in their fields. We did ask Pamela and Kirk this in our previous segment, and now I pose this to you. What advice for aspiring filmmakers and also actors out there might you have?
Well, I'm hesitant to give advice because, I made one animated and one live action short. But what I will say, what has worked for me is I've been a part of a lot of different communities. And, in the Bay Area, been to the community of writers up in Lake Tahoe a few times. And so I've was participating in that, and Women in Film, San Francisco Bay Area, Page Street. So there's a lot of writers communities, and that's been really, really helpful for me. The other thing is film festivals. I've been going to film festivals. I've volunteered. I've worked at film festivals. And then, of course, I've brought my film to film festivals. And so you get to see in Healdsburg, I had my animated film there last year, and they have an incredible range, bringing it back to that. But you get to see what this Iranian filmmaker does, and this Australian filmmaker, and these other American filmmakers in a way. And that to me has been really exciting, but also seeing, wow, that film was only 4 minutes, and look how they told that story. Maybe I can tell a story that way. And then you get it to interact with them too, and get to meet them. So those are the two things that I definitely think, being part of a community, and then also having great neighbors. And I don't know how people can necessarily end up as lucky as I was, and getting to live near Molly and all the neighbors on that block. But that's also been very helpful for me.
Not as being a little bit humble, I wouldn't discount. For one thing, you used the resources that you had in your life. Nada basically said, I like you and your personality, and I think you could do these roles. And it's amazing for me, but it's also creative thinking by Nada. And when I met her, she was not doing this. She was not making films. And there are a lot of people that you will meet in your life who are like, you know what, I'm gonna write and produce a film. First, I'm going to do an animated short, and then I'm going to write a feature-length one, and then I'm going to recover from maybe not, I don't know, getting the opportunity to get something made, and then I'm going to do a live-action short. There are a lot of people who will tell you they are going to do those things, but Nada has shown up and done it and just put in the work. And so for me, it's just been this process of watching the determination, like self-effacing determination that this woman has to tell these stories, to believe in them, to get other people to believe in them. And so the idea that we collaborated on this project for me was just nothing but fun. It was just one, I was like, yeah, couldn't be more fun. Got so excited I knocked over a tissue box.
Peak of excitement over here with Molly, everybody.
It's just, I just get fired up. And then to continue to get emails from Nada week after week saying the new film festivals that we're part of, the awards that we're winning, the continued expansion of this story is all credit to the risk-taking, the determination, and the quiet consistency of one Nada Georgievich. It's just like, if you want to do it, do it.
That's great advice. Got to get out there and do it if you want to put your mind to it.
And Molly, too. I mean, Molly is the same way. I mean, Molly, you are an inspiration to me. I didn't see Molly as an actor, but I knew that she could do it. And I think when she was, with these film and Broadway actors, and totally held her own, even though she hadn't done that for many years since high school. So she inspires me.
Trust your friends. Maybe that's our advice. Trust your friends.
Trust your friends. Always good advice from two professionals out there. Trust your friends. Trust your instinct. Eat, Surf, Love is on Saturday, the 27th at the Healdsburg International Short Film Festival. So make sure, as you're putting your calendar together, getting your agenda for this film festival, make sure Eat, Surf, Love is on that calendar for you to go see. And before we wrap up here, I just want rapid fire from each of you, 3 words that you think strongly define this film.
Eat, surf, love.
Eat, surf, love. Fair enough. That is a great answer.
I'm going to go with authentic, uncomfortable, delightful.
Well, you two have certainly been delightful and authentic. So to all our listeners out there, I just want to say thank you for tuning in to Molly and Nada, and go out there, make your plans to see Eat, Surf, Love at the Healdsburg International Film Festival. And thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being on the podcast with me, ladies.
Thanks, Alo.
Thanks, Alo.
The interviews are done, which means I think it's time to crack one open. Interviews make me thirsty, and I want you thirsting for knowledge about some great beer, both local and not so local. Each week, I'll introduce you to a beer I find discussion-worthy and explain the nuances of what makes it fantastic in my eyes and why you should give it a try. And just to keep it on point, I'll even try to make sure the beer reflects the vibe or theme of the episode. As we just wrapped up an interview with the filmmaker and actress behind the short film Eat, Surf, Love that's set in sometimes sunny San Francisco, I thought I'd crack open and enjoy a beer from a San Francisco brewery that's great to enjoy while eating, perfect to quench your thirst after surfing, and easy to love. That is Fort Point Beer Company's flagship, KSA. KSA is their Kolsch-style ale that is a style with German roots. As we're still in the thick of Oktoberfest, we should all be enjoying as many German beers as we can. That's my motto in any case. Kolsch is a beer famously from Cologne, Germany, where the proper service style is being brought to your table in small stanges, cylindrical small tube glasses that hold just about 6 ounces of beer. A server will put a notch in your coaster for each Kolsch consumed in a session, and you turn your coaster over to notify when you've had your fill and are ready to pay your tab. Kolsch is neither an ale nor a lager. It's a hybrid style of beer that uses an ale yeast but fermenting at lager temperatures. It is clean, crisp, and really lets the pale malt shine through. A beer that typically sits in the 4 to 5% ABV range, it's an easygoing style that's the perfect complement for sunshine, post-yard work activities, and light food. Head out and pick up a pack of KSA at your local favorite place to buy beer, or head on down to Fort Point's 2 locations in San Francisco. One is in the Mission District on Valencia Street, and the other at the Ferry Building, because I believe beer is always better at the source. A big thank you to Pamela, Kirk, Nada, and Molly for appearing on this Film Fest-studded episode of This Must Be the Place. The Healdsburg International Short Film Festival kicks off September 26th. This Must Be the Place is produced by our friends at Pod Locally, an audio platform helping local voices connect to their communities. Don't forget to like, subscribe, or comment on all your favorite podcast apps, and visit the show notes for more information, links, and resources. Look out for our next drop on Sunday. Until then, I'm your host, Alo Galinsky, saying have a great week.